Today I'm going to be building a coil project, a bowl, using a slump mold. Now you can see that I have clay and some slip and some simple tools. I also have a bowl and a piece of plastic to help me with moisture. Coils are made first in the hand. They are cylinders, and I will roll it back and forth, and I need to pay attention to what I'm doing and try to get most of the lumps out, and then I'm going to take it to the table. When I take it to the table, I'm going to roll it back and forth. When I'm rolling a coil, I need to pay special attention to what I'm doing. I need to be able to feel with my fingers how thick or thin it is, because if it gets too flat on one side, it can get floppy and the coil will be ruined. I'm going to also check the width of it. See, I have my fingers up here, and I'm going to check how wide the different parts are, and I'm going to try to get it about as big around as my little finger. You can see that the more I roll it out, the longer it gets and the smaller around it gets. So I'm going to use my fingers once again to feel how thick or thin it is and slowly roll it out. Once again, you will see that I speed up my video to make the tedious parts go a little quicker. I'm not working this fast, it's just the video speeding up. Now I'm going to show you my mold. This bowl is what I'm going to build in, and it's going to help all of the coils stay together and give me a good size that's consistent. I also put this piece of plastic in that I took off the side of a bag so that my project doesn't stick to the bowl itself. This is especially important if your bowl is paper or wood, so that it doesn't soak in. But even if it's plastic, you don't want your coils sticking to the surface. It's easier to remove the liner than it is to remove stuck clay. You may notice that I'm scoring this coil. It's important to note that even though coils are a building method, you still need to score and slip things together that you want to stay stuck. And in this case, I'm going to make a spiral out of this coil, so I'm going to score both sides of it, and I'm going to slip both sides of it before I roll it up. Here you can see, to make this spiral, I slipped one side, and as I roll it, I'm slipping the other side before it touches the first one. And I go round, and now I've made basically what looks like a cinnamon roll. You'll also see me using my sponge a lot on this project to smooth things out. I can put it in water to make it slide over the surface, or I can dip it in slip, which helps add some of the silt back in with the grog of the clay. Since this is going to be the base of my piece, I want to make sure that I get it nice and neat, and you can see that I placed it in the bottom of the bowl. I'm now going to put some little coil bits, they're more like little balls, around the edge, and I'm going to try to make a whole bunch of them about the same size to start with. I also want to make sure that they're only about the size of the end of my thumb, because anything bigger than that can't go in the kiln. You'll see me putting them in here. Each one needs to be scored and slipped not only to the base, but also to the ball next to it, because if I don't score and slip each of them, they will come apart. As a matter of fact, a little bit of them did before, and I pressed them down to get them closer together. I also will need to make more of these balls because I obviously did not make enough of them. The next thing I'm going to do is make a single coil to sort of even out around those balls. It's going to help hold them in place, but it's also going to help hold anything else in place as I go up the sides. I haven't quite reached the sides of my mold, so I know I've got some space to deal with. I'm going to put this in place and try to get it just the right length. It's going to be difficult, and I may have to start over if I don't get it just right. And you'll see me here scoring all of the little balls and putting slip on them, and then I'm going to put this coil in place around them, and it comes apart, and what do you know? Didn't work. Starting over. You got to do that occasionally, actually quite often. Starting over, making a new coil, and working it all the way through here. Now I think I've got it, and I've got a good connection. Once again, I'm going to rescore the ends of all of those. I'm going to rescore the coil. I put more slip on it. It gets all gooey, and it squirts out the sides, and now I have covered the base of my slump mold, the bowl. You will see me here once again using my sponge with a little bit of slip on it to smooth everything out and make sure the connections are good. To tell you the truth, there's enough slip in here to go around. I really don't need to get any more. I'm just sort of spreading it around and getting it smooth. In ceramics, we use many different types of molds. We have hump molds, slump molds, and we also use slip molds. Slip molds are used for slip, which is a different story altogether. But this is a slump mold, meaning we build inside of the mold, and a hump mold would be if we turned it over and built on top of it. As you can see, I'm making some shorter coils here. I'm going to build a design that looks like arches, and to do that, I'm going to want some shorter coils, put some slip in between them, and bend them over each other. Notice that I'm scoring and slipping everything together, even where they pucker together on the inside because I want them to touch. And then I'm going to cut off what I don't need. I built my coils longer than I needed so that I could cut some off. I can use that clay wherever I need to. Now I'm going to build that up on the side here. That last coil that I put in there is going to form a base, and I'm going to put a series of these going around. You can see I put one in place here. I'll deal with the outside of it when I pull it out of the mold later on, when it's closer to leather hard. Right now, this clay is pretty new and pretty soft, and I don't want to pull it out of the mold or it will just flop all over the place. I'm going to make another one of these. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make a series going all the way around. So I'm going to use my fingers to figure out just how thick they should be. My little finger usually serves as a good size for coils. You should be able to see from this that basically I'm building the same arch shape. I'm going to try to keep my coils relatively consistent so that they'll be about the same size all the way around. It won't be perfect, but the more I put on there, the closer to the same size, the better it will look all the way around. Now, since this can get sort of tedious, I'm going to jump ahead to where I have all of my coils put together. At this point, my clay is just about leather hard, and I'm going to tip my mold over, and I'm going to pull the bowl that I made out of the slump mold. Notice that using the liner allows me to pull it out pretty nicely. Now the outside is a little bit lumpy and unfinished, and I'm going to need to go in there before it gets fully leather hard, and I'm going to smooth out a lot of the cracks and crevices that I didn't smooth out earlier because it was on the outside edge facing the mold. You can see that I'm looking for little bits and pieces to push together, to smooth out. I'm using some tools, and you'll see me use not only the metal rounded end of this tool that has a clay knife on the other end, but also you'll see me use my wooden stick. Picking off the little pieces works best when it's leather hard, but at this point I can pull out some of the corners and crevices, and I'm also going to take out my sponge and I'm going to put some slip on the outside just to sort of smooth things out and get rid of a lot of the imperfections. Using a little bit of slip judiciously like this can smooth things out quite a bit. Then I'm going to grab that stick and I'm going to go around the edge, and those arched coils didn't quite connect all the way to the bottom, all the way around on the outside. So that's what I'm going to do here. You'll notice that after the arches, I started putting in some more little circlets and another coil or two to sort of be the transition points between each of the pieces. So you'll see that there are arches, coil, ball, coil, and then I intertwined a couple of them. I suppose I could have braided them, but I just twisted them around each other so that the coils interplay and look a lot like a very fancy basket. At this point, my clay is just before leather hard. It has enough firmness that it can support its own weight, which is why I took it out of the mold. You'll find that it dries faster on the inside than it does on the outside because your moisture shield that we use, that piece of plastic especially, will keep the moisture in on the outside, allowing it to be more malleable longer. Once I've made sure that everything is blended together and pretty smooth, I'm going to let it sit for a while until it gets leather hard, and then I can actually scrape off the bits that I didn't want. Right now I'm putting my name on the bottom along with the year that I made this so that I have a record of what it was. And it takes a bit of time because pressing it into the clay is more effective than actually writing it into the clay, and writing in clay takes quite a while. I've allowed it to become leather hard, and you can see that there are some sections on the edges that are becoming bone dry, so I need to be very careful of those. I'm going to go through, I'm going to carve off the pieces that I don't need and try to get rid of all those little flakes that are coming off. If I see some score marks that didn't quite go away, I'm going to try to dig them out and try to smooth them over if I can. And I'm using this curved smooth tool to try to get around a lot of the corners, and you'll see me doing that. It's sort of like a dental technician trying to get all the little plaque bits out from between the teeth, and then also trying to smooth things over. Now I can't really smooth it when it's leather hard. I sort of have to carve off the surface, and I need to be very careful where it's over here lighter color, because that's getting to be bone dry. The drier the clay is, the less it likes this sort of treatment, and the more likely it is to crack and be ruined. So I'm going to be very, very gentle and slowly pull off the little bits and pieces and smooth things over as I can. You'll see me working here quite a bit. I've sped this video up at least 4 times as fast as it should be, so you can see that although it looks like I'm working fairly quickly, I'm actually going pretty slowly all the way around it, checking all the little bits and pieces and trying to make sure that it's as neat and as clean as I can make it, including on the outside. Because, you know, when I was working on this before, it wasn't really leather hard, and those little bits and pieces, they sort of stick in there. You'll also see that whenever I dump the little crumbs off onto the paper, I try to brush them aside with my hand, because if I put it down on top of something, even if it's leather hard, it will pick up those pieces and they'll become part of the sculpture. I don't want that to happen. Here I'm going to leave you with a shot of the greenware. This is approaching bone dry, but it's still leather hard over most of the surface.